Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Bull. So this week's episode dealt with a surgeon named Terrence, who, very interestingly enough, actually has a past with Marissa. Actually, they dated back in the day. They actually dated, their relationship extended up until a year after college, and then they broke up. But he's a very gifted surgeon, very good at his job, but he's a bit of they will constantly refer to him as a jerk in episode. In layman's terms, he's an asshole. I mean, putting it plainly, he has a god complex. He just thinks he's on top of the world. He even says it himself. It's like surgeons are like the closest thing to God. I mean, because they are kind of the difference between life and death. I mean, more particular, a surgeon at the top of their game is like, you see his kind of him exuberating how narcissistic he is and how much of a complex he has, because he actually shows up during the mock trial where Benny's kind of talking to the guy that's kind of supposed to be like a mock version of Terrence, and he's like, "Oh, this guy's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about." He gets in. He's like, "Okay, idiot, get up. I'm stepping in." He even tears Bull down. Like Bull's like, you're Bull, the psychologist. So not a real doctor, huh?" And then Bull just kind of laughs at it, huh? Nice. And then, but when he's talking to Benny and everything, Benny's asking him all these questions. He's just kind of very matter of fact about it. It's like, if you don't know this, you're an idiot. You're a lawyer. How are you going to talk to me about being surgeon and everything? You know, it's like he's not holding any punches. He even at one point kind of attacks Benny. It's like, especially a lawyer that got fired, and it's like, oh, so you've done some homework on me and stuff like that. So, but essentially, what this case deals with is the fact is that Terrence. Basically, there was a case where basically he saved the woman's life, but in the process, he ended up removing her uterus and other histamines. I'm not even going to pronounce it. I was going to try, but I'm not even going to try to. Essentially, she can't have kids now because of the surgery he did to kind of save her life and whatnot. And so it becomes a case of like, was there malpractice? Did he not go about things the right way? And, you know, it was a very interesting case on many different levels. For one, Bull is normally able to bring his phone in and everything, and he's kind of able to stay tapped in with everyone and kind of let the other team kind of work with him to be like, okay, this is how. It's like, giving him background on the surgeons and the jury and whatnot, kind of letting him pick them. He has the team kind of helping him with that, and so is their system that they use too. But the judge in this episode was like, "Oh, no cell phone," so he kind of had to go off on his own. It's like it's been a while since he's kind of had to do it, but. And it's also an interesting case because we also had a return of Liberty. I remember bringing this up last episode because I saw it in a preview. I didn't know what the episode was about, but I did see that Liberty was back. So it's kind of cool. I was wondering, because I was under the impression when I saw the first episode, I was thinking Liberty was going to be like, oh, she's going to be a mainstay part of the case. But it seems like that's not the case. It just seems like she's probably going to pop in maybe every once in a while or something like this. In this particular case, it's because they needed someone like her, because Benny just wasn't the right fit for it, especially because you have a situation where like I say, it's a messed up situation when you look at it, you break it down. It's like Erica, like she's very sympathetic. I'm not trying to bash her or anything like that. That wasn't even a point of this like case or whatever, because it's like, it's sad. She's a lady that went into it because there were problems that prevented her from having children. She went through the surgery so that she could have children, and ended up leaving the surgery never being able to have children. So it just, it's a situation where you feel for her, because like that's what her and her husband want, especially because her husband is also in the military. So that's probably a big push for it too, because like you have his child and everything to have a part of him just in case something might go wrong. But at the same time, not even just that side of things, just wanting to be a parent. Who knows how long, they've tried and waited, and they've just like, I want to be a mother, I want to be a parent, I just want to have a little child of my own. So you see that side of things, and you look at Terrence's side of things, where it's just like, yes, he's a bit of an asshole. He seems like he doesn't really care about everything, but he kind of does, because essentially you end up finding out many different things. Like, for one, like the people he put on his team, two of the people he actually particularly picked for that surgery were actually kind of people that were kind of labeled as kind of like not very good at their jobs. For one, the anesthesiologist is kind of considered like middle of the road. He's not that good. But in Terrence's defense, he's like, I bring these people along because essentially there's predictability. Like for him, he doesn't like unknowns. Like if someone's has failings in certain degrees, he can understand that. Like, he knows, it's like, okay, this person will mess up here, and he can expect it. The thing is, when you're in a surgery, the one thing you don't want is unknown factors. And it's like with the anesthesiologist and the other woman he brought in, even though they kind of had their thing, that wasn't what that was all about. It's because they were good at their jobs. The anesthesiologist, he's very good at staying calm under pressure. The other guy that was lined up to possibly take that position and everything was like, no. Like, he was like, the guy's a nervous wreck. The lady, she's considered very slow at her job, but the fact of the matter is, she does very extensive research on the patients. So in her case, she ended up getting blood, because she looked so extensively into her file, Erica's file, that she ended up having the right, like, set of blood kind of lined up. Because if it wasn't her, because there was even a point during the surgery where they were going to give her the wrong blood, but because he knew ahead of time, it's like, no, she's this type of blood, and what that blood would have poisoned her or whatever. She's like, her type of blood is B, and that was like A type, and it would have killed her or something. Because there were multiple occasions throughout the surgery where he ended up saving her life, on 3 different occasions. They weren't necessarily faults of his own, because I was wondering, I was like, okay, so is he trying to create an environment where other people mess up so he can be glorified a little bit more? But no, it's because it's like, if he knows they're making these mistakes, he can predict those mistakes, and it lets him to kind of like, okay, I see where that's going. Okay, get this right. It gives him a little bit more control, because, with life and just surgeries, there is a little bit of control. There is a large part of control, but there's also unpredictability, because you don't know, just things can just happen. But you end up finding out other stuff too, like apparently the machine that he uses is an Atticus machine that basically lets him cut down surgeries like time in half. Well, I mean, to a much smaller degree. And it also allows him to get in more precise with the cuts, making it so that like there's a lot less bleeding and stuff like that. So, but what you end up finding out is that the Atticus machine is actually flawed, because it basically was all for me. You could say, like, breaking it down, I forgot the exact measurement, but let's say, for example, it was like 100 millimeters off or something like that. It's a very, like, whatever the case may be, it's a very small amount that it was off, not even detectable by the human eye, especially considering a situation where it's kind of a bloody surgery too. So even, someone as good as Terrence wouldn't have been able to catch it. And it turns out, because one of the guys, because what I liked about this jury too is the fact is that Bull created a jury of people with God complexes, kind of the top of their fields or whatever, because it's like only someone with a God complex will kind of appreciate and kind of like accept the guy. Like, they won't look at him as an jerk. They'll look at him as like, oh yeah, he's just the top of his game. Just like the point was to kind of put themselves in his shoes, to kind of be like, oh, that could be me in this situation, and I could be putting themselves in his shoes essentially. So ended up naming them different things, named them after, because they have God complexes, kind of named them Greek gods and everything, which I appreciate. But there was a dude who's kind of a top class food critic named, going by the name Dionysus. Essentially, he was being paid off by the Atticus people to kind of like, because it was kind of to swing more in. They were there to make sure that the malpractice suit didn't really that he won, but for different reasons, because it's like he's a shining example. He's like the best surgeon, and then if the best surgeon around is using their device, it's kind of like, oh, look how amazing our device is, even a top-notch surgeon is. So it's more so for the device than it is for him, but it is to keep him around, because he is, I think the word Bull kind of used was poster boy, just poster child of just being like, hey, using him as kind of the face and being like, oh, this top-notch surgeon uses it, so obviously you can use it and you should trust it. So what I really like is that basically the guy who was kind of behind the whole thing, like what they did is they brought the Atticus machine in, and they were telling him, oh, put your hands up here and let it operate on you, just to kind of show the jury and everybody here like how good it works and everything. He's like, okay, sure. I was like, oh yeah, before we get started, I got to let everyone in the jury know that actually it's been reverted back to its original state, because after the surgery, to kind of cover up for the fact is that there was mistakes with the machine, because that would have cost them a lot of money, because they would have been liable for it. They put in like a patch program to cover up that mistake in the data so no one would find it. Obviously, Cable did when her and Danny were kind of undercover. I was like, legitimately, my mind went to the wrong place, because he was talking about that nurse outfit. I was thinking like, for some reason, my mind being the way I am, I went to sexy nurse outfit. And for some reason, I was thinking it was going to be Cable wearing it. But then he threw it in Danny. Oh yeah, Danny. I mean, because she's back in that Callisto episode, I mean, we've seen her kind of going undercover and everything, and just how well that works out for her, just how Daisy Duke she was in that episode, but that's besides the point. I'm sorry. Like my brain just went there, just being like, oh yeah, I like, instinctively thought sexy nurse outfit. But I guess you could argue that's kind of like with Halloween. Halloween just kind of puts that in your mind. I mean, it makes you wonder: does anyone ever dress up as just a plain nurse? It's for Halloween. I don't know. I don't know. That seems weird to me. Like just dressing up as a doctor or a nurse. I mean, it's not really that weird, but it's just like if you're not like a sexy doctor or a sexy nurse or a zombie nurse or whatever, some kind of monster, something mixed with a nurse or doctor. It's kind of like you're just a doctor or nurse. That's just so normal. But I know I'm going off on a tangent and everything. But what I really appreciate in this episode, getting back to that, it's just like he was freaking out and everything, and Liberty was like, "Oh, so that means there was a flaw in the system? Oh, you're up here not letting it. So could there possibly be something wrong with the system enough that even a top-notch technician you wouldn't trust Atticus to be used on you?" It's like, So, but what I kind of get into it is seeing the wall kind of be broken down around Terrence. Like, he kind of finally, the point was, for Benny to kind of go for the jugular. And it's like, oh, what did he's like, oh, what do you think these people are thinking? It's like, I don't know. How am I supposed to know that I'm a surgeon and everything? And he just kind of gets a little frustrated and everything. And he finally breaks. He's like, I'm good at my job. It's fine to be good at one thing, right? I'm good at a surgeon. You tell me, I can break down everything when it comes to being a surgeon and everything. I can tell you everything that went down, every step by step of everything that was wrong, what went right with the whole surgery and everything in Erica's case. But the fact of the matter is, the thing is, because she felt like he was a little cold because he wasn't there to kind of console her afterwards. But he explains, like, he's not very good at communicating with people. He is very, like, his mind is built in a way where he retains a lot of knowledge and stuff like that. That knowledge helps him distinguish, helping people, the difference. That knowledge is the difference between life and death. And it's like, that's all his knowledge is, towards surgery. But outside of that, he doesn't really have much of a social life. He doesn't really bring up any friends. He's like, even using Marissa as an example, being like the woman he was never able to tell her how much he loved her because she even brings it up, like the fact is it's like, let the jury see the side of you, the men that I fell in love with. Because she's like, the first time that they went on a date, it was kind of like essentially a surgery related thing that they went on a date towards. About Marissa ended up throwing up and they ended up kissing. But after that, it was like their second date. He knew he kind of messed up, so he kind of did something a little more relaxed. And she, we kind of got to see that side of Terrence at that point in the episode, just being like, I'm sorry that I can't be more consoling to my patients. It's because I don't know how to. It's not in my repertoire. It's not in my set of skills. Like, you need me to do a surgery? Fine. I'm the top of my game. I'm very good. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm the best at this. But when it comes to talking to people, I can't do it. So, just showing you, and even Bull says himself best, it's like, even, it shows you that even gods can be human, and it just shows you that was kind of a very human side of it, because everyone has their own little idiosyncrasies. In his case, it's just like he's not very good at talking to people. I'm not very good at talking to people. I'm granted, I'm much better at it than he is, but it's just kind of, I guess when you're at different level of thinking, because like that's why he comes off very assholish, jerkish and whatnot, is because he's at such a level that he doesn't, for him, it's hard to process, like, oh, I'm supposed to be, a little empathetic, that I shouldn't be talking to you a certain way, like, that the way I'm talking to you is very demeaning or whatever. It's just like, for him, it's just a matter of fact, it's like this, and this. If you don't notice, you're an idiot. Get out of the way. You're just wasting time. This is a waste of time if you don't understand it, because it's like I'm sitting here talking to a brick wall in his case, so. Because something else, learning a little bit more about Marissa, which that was kind of the thing, though, like also kind of trailing that back a little bit. The fact is, Bull was like, so why don't I know about this guy? Which makes me wonder, I guess, because I would assume Marissa is the person he kind of started with first out of the team and everything. So I'm wondering, is it going to be a case of like, they tell each other everything, they really know everything about each other's lives. Maybe there's certain things they don't know. So far it hasn't really come up to be that case, but it's like, we haven't really kind of delved into the relationship. But this episode kind of delved into that, because it's like, this is something about Marissa that Bull didn't know. So the way he said it makes it seem like they do know everything about each other. They've probably known each other for quite a long time and everything. But I also ended up finding out that Marissa was adopted. She ended up talking to Erica about it. She was like, I know this might not be the best time. This might seem a little insensitive and everything, but I do want to let you know, you may not be able to have children yourself, but there's always a, adoption option if Because, that doesn't, just because you're not able to have kids of your own doesn't stop you from being in a position to be a parent. She's like, I am thankful every day, she's like, that my parents adopted me and everything. So kind of switching that mindset, because it's just like, for her, it's just like, yeah, you lost a chance to have a child that way. And maybe it hurts a little bit knowing that you'll never be able to have a child to kind of pass on a little bit of yourself on, which, for some people, they might look at it that way, whether it's from like a, biological and kind of animalistic standpoint, but it's also, but the fact of the matter is, for her, it seems like more so than anything, it's just having a child that she can take care of and love. So, adoption's always an option. There are options for her. So, and even Bull and them were offering us like, hey, we're going to help you out. Like, you want to go after Atticus, we'll help you. We got the evidence for it to back you up. I mean, obviously we didn't get to that in the episode, but I'm pretty sure, like I said, it's a sad situation, because it's like, Terrence wasn't to blame, but at the same time, you can't blame Erica for being in a situation like making this suit, because it's like she wanted a child, and it's like you can't help but feel sorry for her. It's like there's no wrong on either side. It's just like each side has their own problems. Like in Terrence's case, he just wasn't very good at communicating the fact of being there for his patient, when like it would have been like, maybe this could have been avoided if he was there, because for her, that was the kind of thing, he wasn't there for her emotionally, and it's like during such a trying time, finding out she would not be able to have kids, so it seemed like for her, he didn't care, and that's what kind of made everything kind of play out the way it did. And you had a very interesting conversation between Bull and Marissa at the end. It's like she kind of realized that things with Terrence wouldn't have worked out, because you can't be with a man like that who's very intolerable. Like, if he was a little more tolerable, then you can spend more time with him. But it's like just being the way he is. But then she kind of uses Bull, for example. It's like it works between us, and the reason why it didn't work between me and Terrence is because we're dating. So I can be around a very intellectual, intolerable guy, just can't date him. And then it's just kind of like, and Bull's kind of like, well, I'm glad you agree, because it's like it just basically wouldn't work out for him. So it's like, hey, cheers to our platonic relationship. So ever throwing out the possibility of that ever happening, immediately. I mean, it makes you wonder, did anyone try and ship them together already? It's like, because we really haven't really gotten an opportunity. I doubt Bull's interested in anyone that he works with. I highly doubt that. Like I said, I mean, it's already weird enough that you're working with your ex-brother-in-law. Like I said, I'm still waiting for that episode to see when that comes up and everything. So, finding out about Bull's ex and see like what kind of lady she is. I'm very interested to see who they get to play her, whether it's going to be an actress I recognize or not. It's going to be interesting. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.